Hello and welcome. You're watching TV on TV. I'm State Representative Tommy Vitolo. We're on Brookline Interactive Group. Today is Thursday, November 4th, and we've got a great show for you today. We have Elizabeth Boen, who's the Executive Director of the Brookline Food Pantry, and we're going to learn all about its history, what it's been doing to get through COVID and help people through such a difficult time, and also what it's got for the future. But first, the news, and we'll start with United States President Joe Biden, who has continued his European tour this week, meeting with foreign leaders to discuss environmental goals and economic issues. Election results continue to roll in from around the country. I'm thrilled that my friend Michelle Wu created history on Tuesday night, becoming the first woman and the first person of color to be elected mayor of the city of Boston. Republican Glenn Youngkin's victory in Virginia's gubernatorial election has raised concerns for Democrats across the country who saw this race as a litmus test for 2022 congressional elections. In New Jersey, Democratic Governor Phil Murphy was narrowly reelected, and in nearby New York City, the race for mayor was declared for Eric Adams. Last Friday, I joined my colleagues in the Massachusetts House of Representatives to vote in support of a $3.82 billion American Rescue Plan Act. I was excited to vote in support of an ARPA spending package that priorities communities of color, low-income communities, and those most impacted by COVID-19. The final House package includes 5 earmarks for Brookline, including the Brookline Senior Center, Brookline Teen Center, Brookline Green Space Alliance, Women Thriving, and the Jewish Alliance for Law and Social Action. In Brookline, the Select Board, Advisory Committee, and other boards and committees continue to prepare for a November special town meeting. And that's really the news for the week, mostly elections, a few other drips and drabs, but I don't want to delay. I really want to get into the interview. And so stay tuned. We're going to flip over to an interview recorded a few days ago with Brookline Food Pantry's Executive Director, Elizabeth Boen. See you on the flip side. And as promised, today we've got the Executive Director of the Brookline Food Pantry, Elizabeth Boen, here on Brookline Interactive Group. Elizabeth, so glad you're here today.
Thank you, Tommy. It's such a pleasure to be here, and I really appreciate your inviting me.
And as I said in the pre-show, 10 out of 10 on this Zoom background, really lovely. But we want to talk, we want to learn and talk about the food pantry a little bit. And you're the executive director, so you probably know a thing or two about it. Can we just start with a little bit of history about the food pantry, sort of, how long it's been around, and give us some sort of baseline for what the food pantry is all about.
Sure. So the food pantry was actually started by St. Paul's Episcopal Church on St. Paul Street. And this was a couple of decades ago when some of the parishioners realized that in this town where many people are quite comfortable, there was a need for a food pantry. And at that time, it was very small. The parishioners just brought in food themselves, and they opened up one day a week and gave away what they had. Unfortunately, they did find that as word spread of there being a food pantry, they realized the need was really much more than they thought. They had to work a lot harder, and about 9 years ago, they actually realized that it was just too big for them to handle themselves. At that point, they asked one of their top volunteers, Renee Feuerman, who became the first executive director of the pantry, to take over. And she did so very successfully. She turned the pantry into a 501(c)(3). She joined the Greater Boston Food Bank to really expand the food offerings. And it became, a much more sophisticated entity, being open several days a week at St. Paul's and getting many volunteers from outside of just that parish community. And now, Tommy, over the last few years, we've realized that it's not always convenient for all of our clients to come to that area. So we opened a second food pantry at the Brookline Housing Authority units on Egmont Street about 5 years ago. And in 2020, we also opened a third pantry location at another Brookline Housing Authority site at the High Street Veterans. And both of those have been very successful and very convenient for the folks who live in those units as well as around there. The most recent change for the pantry has been this past August, when we realized that St. Paul's obviously wanted to open up like many communities with people getting vaccinated, and we just could not fit our operation in their church any longer. We were very lucky that the United Parish Church, where our third pantry currently resides on Harvard Street, reached out to us and was willing to offer us space for all of the food we need to store weekly, as well as a spot for our clients to come. So that's how the food pantry has moved along in the last few years.
No doubt the viewers appreciate the importance of the pantry over all that time. And no doubt the viewers appreciate the importance of the pantry since the pandemic. And it's a long time ago already. Folks may not remember that when the government imposed an economic shutdown on a tremendous number of industries, that instantly folks lost income. Some lost 20%, some lost 60%, some lost 100%. And unemployment doesn't always ramp up immediately, and it's never going to be enough anyway. And so there was a dramatic change in so many people's lives, including their ability to put food on the table. And I know that, that your organization played such a critical role. Can you walk us through kind of March, April, May 2020 and what you saw in terms of need? And
Sure. It was really incredible, Tommy, and you really hit the nail on the head saying how life changed for so many people who unfortunately either lost their jobs or their hours were cut quite a bit. So at the beginning of March 2020, we typically saw about 175 families per week visit the food pantry. And that was pretty consistent, to be quite honest. Within just a month of the pandemic starting, our numbers shot up to 650 to 700 families per week needing help from the food pantry. So it was quite incredible. And I'm really, honored to say, because of the generosity of the town in terms of money, as well as the generosity of volunteers coming out and helping us, we were able to stay open every day and every hour. That the pantry was always open during the pandemic. And I believe we might be one of the only pantries in Eastern Massachusetts that was able to do so and really accommodate every single family who came to us. So the other way that everything really changed is that we had to move all of our operations outdoors. Thankfully, the health department did allow us to have a certain number of volunteers indoors. So we started pre-packing bags of food for everybody. We had a full bag of dry goods, a full bag of fresh produce, and a full bag of refrigerator and freezer foods, including things like milk and eggs and cheese and frozen meats. And we were able to set up tables outdoors and hand them out to the clients who came. And we've been able to keep that up for the last 17 months. So it was a pretty long winter, I will say, last year. And our volunteers were just amazingly selfless, staying outside for hours on end in the middle of winter in some pretty tough weather and temperatures. So we are still seeing the same number of families coming to the pantry every week, anywhere from 650 to 700. The need has not dropped at all. In addition to that, we have started a delivery program. which we began in March 2020, but we have kept it up. We did find right when the pandemic started that there were a lot of, especially elderly clients, but also some people who had serious medical issues whose doctors were telling them not to leave their homes, as we all remember. And they were terrified that they would have run out of food and have nothing to eat. So many of them relied on us, and we knew immediately we'd have to start a delivery program, which we did. That program served about 120 families over the past year. Many of them did get vaccinated and come back over this last spring and summer. So right now we typically help about 65 to 70 families per week. And we will keep that program up because we do feel there still are people nervous, especially the elderly, about getting COVID. And also with the bad winter weather coming, it makes it very difficult for a lot of them, especially those who walk to the pantry, to come and get their food and get back home in inclement weather.
So you mentioned your customer base grew from a little under 200 to between 600 and 700 or more, and you mentioned that the community really stepped up in terms of contributions and volunteer hours, and somehow you managed to get that as close to matching as possible. I have no doubt that week to week it was incredibly stressful to deal with the swings. And you mentioned a little bit the additional challenges of the volunteers, but I want to really help people remember nobody knew if it was, at that point, people still thought you could get it by touching things, right? And there are certain kinds of nonprofits that you can put on the back burner for a few months because of an emergency and get back to later, but helping with hunger is not one of them. Right? You just can't say, we'll come back in 3 months if your mission is to help put food in the bellies of children. And so your volunteers had this incredibly stressful circumstance. I have no doubt that management, you and the others who had to make these decisions, had this incredibly difficult situation because you want to help your clientele, but you don't want to hurt the volunteers. So can you talk a little bit more about what those conversations were like and some of the real tricky spots, or maybe where you kind of had to look folks in the eye and take a leap of faith that you were doing it right? Because I have no doubt it was incredibly challenging. It was one of those things that now we forget about. We forget about how stressful it was. But it's something I really want to help people remember, because I think it's really important, and the leadership from you and your organization is something that I want people to hear out loud.
Well, thank you, Tommy. It's yes, it seems hard to believe now, but that is the truth. There were many in the town who thought the pantry should close because it was just so scary to think that we could be super spreaders, having people coming to the pantry to pack bags, having hundreds of clients come per day. It was very, very scary. We met as a team and immediately realized that we had to do anything possible to keep the pantry open. That not only did we know the clients we already had would be desperate for food to put on their tables, but that the numbers would only grow. We had no idea how much, but we knew that would happen. So we did go to the town. We made some very definitive plans based on the knowledge at the time about how many people would be indoors at any one time, how distant they would stand from one another, windows open, anything we could do to make the town see that we were really being as careful as possible, including at one pantry at Egmont Street. There's a tiny little hallway, which it's impossible not to be close to another person if two people are in that hallway at the same time. We actually had a rule that if you came to the hallway, you had to yell coming through. so that anyone on the other side would wait for you to come through and pass by. So it was very scary. And we had a lot of, especially retirees volunteering at that time. The daytime hours fit their schedules. And they were very sad to be told by their doctors and their families that they needed to stay home. So many people felt that way. And of course, who can blame them? We all remember how scary it was. So I will just say, Tommy, I must give a shout out to the teenagers of Brookline at this point, because remote schooling started immediately. Many of them were stuck home behind a screen all day, not seeing any friends, not getting outdoors. And they really came through for us. It does not, I have no doubt at all telling you this moment, the pantry would have had to close at some point, even for a few hours, some hours, or some days, if the teenagers of Brookline had not come out and volunteered. They were very brave. They followed every rule. They worked so hard. And again, without them, we couldn't have done the work we did.
I'm delighted to hear you say that. That's something I did not know. And it feels good when the community comes together like that. Sorry, give me a minute. Can you tell us a little bit? I want to shift gears a little bit and tell us about the Brookline Thrives backpack program. I think it's a relatively new idea, and it sounds really interesting, and I want to hear more about it.
Sure. Well, we have a wonderful leader of our Brookline Thrives backpack program. That is Kim Kushner. And several years ago, Kim became very concerned about the children of the Brookline Public Schools who might be getting free or reduced lunches in school all week, but what were they doing on the weekend if their family was suffering from food insecurity? How would they be able to keep up with their peers if their biggest worry was where they were going to find food over the weekend, instead of having time to read, study, do their homework, and be ready for school on Monday mornings? So she approached the pantry and asked us if we would help her with the funding for this program. I will say we gave it some thought, and it made perfect sense that it fit right in with our mission of making sure that no one in Brookline goes to bed hungry. Kim now has a fantastic program. We are in every K through 8 and BEEP school, except for the Heat School, which will be starting next week, actually. And we're giving out about 350 to 400 backpacks per week to these children. It includes individual meals as well as a lot of snacks and shelf-stable milks. And we're just thrilled, again, with the amount of volunteers that we have who come and pack all these backpacks, who carry these huge bins full of backpacks into every school every week and come back the next week and do the same thing. What I'm also just very happy to report, Tommy, is that we have heard from so many school principals, school nurses, and teachers about the difference in the attitude of the children on Monday mornings, that a lot of them are now able to sit and pay attention and take part in the classes instead of just worrying about when was lunchtime coming because they were so hungry. And that it's really helped them to keep up over the weekend with their work, where they don't have this very basic worry of what do I have to eat this weekend. So I just want to say thank you again to all the volunteers and the generosity of the town that keep this program running, because it is so crucial.
Love to hear it. It reminds me of a similar idea at the Brookline Teen Center that they have recently rolled out. For those who don't know, the Teen Center has like a snack and health and beauty shop. And it's a shop in the sense that they stock products and folks come in and they get what they need. It's not a shop in the sense that there's no cash register. And teenagers can pick up, a bar soap when their family needs bar soap. And the young women can pick up menstrual products when they need them. And it's just no big deal. And for those kids, not having to worry about those sort of fundamentals so they can focus on being kids is is a really important thing. And so I'm really happy uh, that the backpack program continues to grow and continues to be successful. Tell us a little bit about Thanksgiving. I know it's a big time, and I know that it drives a lot of contributions, and I know the need is bigger. So it's in a couple of weeks. Tell us what you got planned.
Sure. Yes, Thanksgiving is one of our busiest times. I'm thrilled to say again, with our generous community, we are able to offer every family a Thanksgiving meal to bring home, as well as their regular meals that they bring home during the week. So we typically, again, we pack a nice bag of dry goods to include things like cranberry sauce and gravy, mashed potato flakes, canned vegetables, and things. We also give everyone a full bag of fresh produce once again. We give everybody a frozen turkey, or some prefer a frozen chicken if they're having a smaller gathering. And the community really comes through with pies. I will say that is really the biggest hit with so many of our clients. So many in the community either go and buy them or they make them themselves. But again, we'll probably see just around 600 households coming to us for those. We will have all three locations open, one per day on the Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday prior to Thanksgiving. And we will be in each location pre-packing all of the meals the day before that. So it's a lot of work that week, but we know it's worth it. We can't think of anything more important than everybody in our community being able to, really have the food and have a great time with their families on such a wonderful holiday. And again, we keep our regular hours open every day except Thanksgiving as well, just to make sure everyone is well stocked for the rest of the week.
So what does your crystal ball tell you? You mentioned a couple of times that throughout COVID the need has not declined, uh, and that I think can be confusing to folks in Brookline, where most folks seem to be back to work, and there seem to be lower unemployment numbers, and yet that doesn't solve the problem for everybody. And I know for you it's like, well, duh, but I think folks may be surprised that in an economy that seems so good, where there's a lot of spending going on, that this increased need has stuck around. Do you think it's going to decline, or is this sort of the food pantry new normal?
That's a very good question, Tommy. At this point, we do consider this the food pantry's new normal. I think what many of us, tend to forget is that the loss of income, even for 3 or 4 months, or a reduced income for a family for 3 or 4 months, who already had a pile of bills on the table and had difficulty paying those, is it takes a very long time to recover. For so many families, either they're, as we said before, the business closed, the business hours went, to very small hours, or people had to give up their jobs to stay home while their children were being schooled remotely, or maybe to care for an elderly sick parent, or even a sick family member. And that just really, really affects some people for a very long time. And I do feel, especially if you're trying to make ends meet and so many bills are coming in, we all know how that is. Now we see wintertime approaching. We all know what heat bills look like in the wintertime. Gasoline prices are going through the roof for people who have to drive to work. Childcare costs are really high at this point, and even difficult to find a place to have your child put in childcare. All of these things are making it very difficult for people to catch up with their family finances, and certainly making it, I believe, impossible to make ends meet at the end of the week. This is what we've heard from so many families. The other thing I'll just point out, Tommy, is that there really were many families who I believe never thought they would come to a food pantry during the pandemic and even in the months as things seem to be getting more normal. Yet, people with 6 months or 12 months savings of their income ran out. Their safety net was gone. All of a sudden, the same bills were coming through the table, but I'm sorry, through the door, but there was no extra money in the bank to make ends meet. And that still hasn't stopped either. I hate to say it. I think we're in this new normal for a while. I know we all hope that things will get better.
And I'm going to take that moment to remind folks that there are a variety of government support services that you may be eligible for. And if you are eligible, I hope that you avail yourselves to them. So to that end, look, this is me. This is my phone number, 617-872-8921. My email address is tommy.vitolo@mahouse.gov. If you need any help at all finding programs that might help you with your heating bills, there's LIHEAP. With groceries, there's SNAP, right? There are things that are available, and we know there are hundreds of thousands of people in Massachusetts who are eligible who are not signed up. And there can be lots of reasons why folks aren't signed up. And one of them might be that they don't know the program exists. Another might be that they tried and for whatever reason, the website didn't work or the phone number didn't work, or call me. Call me. One of my most important jobs is to help individuals who need something from the government and aren't getting it. And so if I can be of assistance to you, I want to be. And then go hang out at the food pantry anyway, and go hang out because you need the services, or go hang out because you don't and you need to volunteer. How do folks volunteer? How do folks make a contribution? I want to make sure that those who want to support the pantry know exactly how to do it.
Yes, thank you, Tommy. If we have a website, brooklinefoodpantry.org, and if you go to that website, it will give you an opportunity to fill out a volunteer form. That will just ask you a few questions about what days and hours you're available, as well as what tasks you think you might like to do. There's also a button right on our website that would allow you to make an electronic donation, a monetary donation, as well as our address, if someone would prefer to send a check as a donation. And we really just give the grateful thanks to everybody, again, who has come out to be able to support 700 families a week in our community, to feed our neighbors. There's nothing more important. And this community has shown just incredible, incredible generosity in terms of both monetary donations and volunteerism. We thank you all very much.
Elizabeth, thank you for showing up to work every day, for really working to make our community a better place, particularly for those who are facing such challenges every day. Folks, you've been watching Brookline Interactive Group. I'm Tommy Vitolo. Very grateful that you're watching. Elizabeth, very grateful for your work. We'll see you next week.